All right, hi everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar where we'll be talking about Desk Connect and how to synchronize your data between Desk and Salesforce. So before we begin, let me just introduce myself. My name is Brian Suh. I am the onboarding and training specialist here at Desk, and I do specialize in Desk Connect along with other tasks to help customers onboard onto Desk. So a few housekeeping items before we begin today. So today's training portion of the office hours will be just about 15 to 20 minutes long, where we'll talk about some pre and post enablement points, as well as walking you through the actual Desk Connect setup on the Desk side as well as Salesforce side. Following that, we will have a Q&A session. So if you do have any questions during the training, feel free to type those into the GoToWebinar questions panel, and we'll get those answered towards the end. Also, today's session is being recorded, so if you can't stay with us for the entire time, we will be emailing out the recording to you afterwards. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So let's begin by talking about what is the Desk Connect. Desk Connect is the full bidirectional sync between Desk and Salesforce. And by default, out of the box, Desk Connect is going to sync with the three main CRM objects between Desk and Salesforce. And that's meaning the case, the contact, and the account. Now, we did have an old integration with Salesforce where we used a custom case object inside of Salesforce. But now with Desk Connect, we now use the standard case object in Salesforce, and that's completely out of the box. So that way you can use all those canned reports that are already set up for you in Salesforce. Now, we don't only sync the case, contact, and account objects, but we also sync the interactions on the case as well. So, for example, if you're reaching out to your customers and your customers are reaching out to you, those interactions are being captured in Desk, and we push those interactions to the case in Salesforce. So anyone looking at the case in Salesforce is going to be able to see all the complete customer history and all the interactions you've had with that customer. Now, that's great, but why is it important to connect sales and service? Well, there's a couple of main points, and it's about achieving that 360-degree view of a customer. It's about having a complete view from the customer history to all the customer interactions, and even about sales opportunities that you've had. So from a sales perspective, we know that your sales team is going to be more effective if they have access to customer service cases. And that's one of the main features of Desk Connect, being able to connect your sales team that's living in Salesforce and customer service team that's living in Desk. So for example, your customer service team is creating cases in Desk and syncing cases into Salesforce. And now when your sales team is looking at an opportunity in Salesforce and they're looking at a contact, they're now able to see all the customer service history from that contact. So now they're able to go into a sales deal and say, hey, I know you have 7 open cases with us. We resolved the last 4, and it looks like the last 3 are in development. And so ultimately, this is going to make your customers happier, and it's really going to make your customers trust you more as a brand. And this is going to make your sales team more effective overall. And on the flip side, we know that your service team is going to be able to give a much better experience to the customer if they have some sales data coming in. So the salesperson can write a note or an internal case comment in Salesforce saying, hey, I talked to the customer during the sales cycle and they're a little bit unhappy about this one aspect. So just to let you know before you reach out to the customer. Again, so it's ultimately about having that 360-degree view of the customer. Now, so let's talk about a few prerequisites that are needed to enable this amazing feature. So the first thing that's needed is that you need to be a Salesforce customer and have a Salesforce Professional Edition or above. Next, in Salesforce, we want to make sure that the case priority pick list values have been added, and those are high, medium, and low. Then the other field in Salesforce that we're going to check is the case status. As a Salesforce system administrator, we need to go into setup and make sure that the case priority and the case status have the correct values. for status, this is going to be new, open, pending, resolved, and closed. And then on the desk side, we want to make sure that you are a desk professional plan or above, in addition to being on a Salesforce professional plan or above. Next is object mapping. Now remember that the three standard objects that we map are case, contact, and account. In Desk, we call Salesforce contacts customers. So any customer records that are created in Desk using Desk Connect, these will get synced over as your Salesforce contacts. In Desk, we call Salesforce accounts companies. So whenever you create a company in Desk, those will get synced over to Salesforce as accounts now. For contacts, we use the email address as the unique identifier and also the phone number to match the contact record in Salesforce. For the account, we just use the exact account name. Next, let's talk about desk cases to Salesforce cases. We're able to create these and have them under the correct account and contact in Salesforce by editing the layout. So we want to make sure that in Salesforce that your standard case object is visible within your contact and your account layouts. So if you're using an install package integration that we do offer, you'll notice that these cases are going through a custom object called Desk.com cases. Now, using Desk Connect, what we do is sync to the native case object that comes with Salesforce. So that way you as an administrator can run better reporting in Salesforce and even create dashboards. All right. So next, let's talk about things to consider post-enablement. When we enable Desk Connect, only new cases, customers, and company records that are created or edited in either system will sync. So if you have any historical data, then all you need to do is actually, as an agent or administrator, you can just initiate a bulk update. Now, you don't necessarily have to change the status or any other fields, but once you open the case and edit, the system will be able to sync the cases over to Salesforce. One more thing to note about the standard case object is that the cases get synced over the native case object. So within the related list in Salesforce, you want to make sure that this case object is visible. If not, you'll need to contact the Salesforce administrator and simply just edit the layout. Now for syncing time, whenever you make any edits from Desk.com or create a case or customer, these updates will instantaneously get synced over to Salesforce. Now, when making changes on the Salesforce side, it takes up to 5 minutes for those changes to appear in Desk. Next here, field mapping. Now, what's great about Desk Connect is that we not only give the ability to bidirectionally sync information, but on top of that, you can also map fields. So if you have custom fields created in Salesforce, you have the ability to map those over to Desk. So your Desk agents will now have the ability to see all of that information. Now here are the standard field mappings per object. So when we enable Desk Connect for cases, we'll be able to map the status, priority, subject, and description without any additional setup at all. But for context, it'll be the name, title, phone, and email. And for account, it's once again the account name. And these are standard fields that will automatically get mapped once we enable Desk Connect. Now, if you want to map your custom fields, here are the 4 data types that we have the ability to sync with. And those are text, pick list, checkbox, and date. Our next point here is that case numbers are not synced by default. So what's different is that Desk case numbers are different from Salesforce case numbers. So in order for your Salesforce representative to be able to log in quickly and see which Desk case is associated with the corresponding Salesforce case, we can now achieve this with the custom field mapping. And if you'd like more information on creating this workflow, you can always reach out to our support team for help on that. And now our last point here is that Desk Connect the Desk Connect integration, in fact, does not count against the Salesforce API limit. So for those of you administrators that are really conscious of your API limits that comes with your plan, luckily with Desk Connect, you don't have to worry about that at all. So I'm going to jump over to my desk site first here. And right now I'm in the admin console. And I'll go ahead and go over to settings, which is the gear icon here. And we'll click there. And then we'll scroll down here. So right now I am seeing Desk Connect here. In case you're not seeing this, then you will have to email your AE, and they can actually get this feature enabled for you, and they'll just check a couple of things on your account to make sure that you do qualify for this. And so eventually you will see this tab, and then once you click on it, mine will look just a little bit different. I've already turned mine on, but yours will be on the off toggle here. And once you move it over to on, it'll ask you, are you sure that you do want to turn this on? And then it'll take just about 30 seconds to sync over. And that's just establishing the relationship between Desk and Salesforce, and also mapping the fields. So once it is on, you'll see these three tabs here: company, customer, and case. So within these three tabs, you can choose which way the sync actually happens. So if I want to make sure for all my companies, which are accounts in Salesforce, I can say on for Salesforce to Desk and on for Desk to Salesforce. So I'll do that also for my customers. I'll say on for Salesforce to Desk, and then also on for Desk to Salesforce. Now, the company and customer, that's really going to depend on you on whether you want to bi-directionally sync this. We have seen some customers that actually leave, maybe it's a combination of these options or even all of them off. But for the cases here, I definitely recommend that you turn both the Salesforce to Desk and Desk to Salesforce options both on. So you definitely want to sync all the interactions that are coming through on both sides. Now, once you've done that, and then you can actually go ahead and save those changes. And let me just click here just for practice here. Once you've saved those changes, then you can jump over to your Salesforce account here. And then now we have to make sure that everything on this side is set up correctly. So here, we'll jump over to setup here. And then what we need to do is I'll walk you through on the cases. So I'll actually just search for cases really quickly here. And again, you can just manually find it under Customize and Cases, and then we'll actually go to Fields here. Okay. So what I'm looking for first here is to make sure that the priority and status are matching. So I'll scroll down here to priority first of all. And earlier we had mentioned that we want to make sure that the values for high, medium, and low are in fact all here, and they are. So that's all good. And so we'll make sure that you do save those changes if any are made. And then let's hop just back here and then go into status and make sure that once again we are seeing those values for new, open, pending, resolved, and closed. And those are all in fact here. And you do want to make sure that you set your default value to new, and make sure that the closed option is selected for closed. Okay. So once you've done that and that's all set, now your interactions are being synced, and your priority and status are all being synced. But we do need to make sure that these are visible on your layouts. So what we'll actually do is a really easy way is actually just to go into your contacts. You can navigate there from the setup area, but I like to just go into a contact and go straight to edit layout here. And then once we're here, we'll go to the related list. Okay, and you'll look for cases. So mine's already grayed out right now, and the reason for that, it's already showing up here on my cases. But if I were to go ahead and just drag it back, then I'll see I do have the option to actually click and drag it, and then I'll add it to my related list here and make sure it does show up. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and save that. All right, and then the next thing that we want to do is do the same for accounts. So I'll go to any account here. I'll just open up. And then once again, I'll go to edit my layout. And then once again, I will go to my related list. And then the same thing, My cases field is already grayed out because it's already been added, but if you haven't, go ahead and just drag it into the related list field, and you can also change the order in which it appears. If you wanted to appear maybe under contacts, you can do so, and just make sure you save your changes here. All right, and I'll go do that right now. Okay, so now your interactions are being shown on your accounts and your contacts, so that is perfectly fine. Now we'll actually hop back over to the desk side, and we'll walk through just a couple more things here. So earlier I mentioned that you do have the option to map fields. So once again, we are already in the setup area and we're under Desk Connect, and then we'll go to field mappings here. So here, once again, you have the option to select company, customer, or case. So let's go ahead and just click on case for now. Now we do have two type of fields here. First, you'll see the mappable fields on the very top here, and then you'll see the non-configurable fields. Now, the non-configurable fields, those are going to be automatically set up for you, and you're not able to change this much. So here, the non-configurable fields for cases are going to be the status, as we went over, and the priority. Now, I know that in Salesforce, the priority is handled a little bit differently than in Desk. In Desk, it's handled through a number scale, from 1 being the lowest to 10 being the highest. And the way that Salesforce Desk Connect handles the syncing for that is that for the low option in Salesforce, in Desk, it's going to be priorities 1 through 4. And for medium, it's going to be 5 through 9. And then anything that's a 10 is going to show up as high in Salesforce. So these are going to be the non-configurable fields. Again, a lot of standard information like phone, email, description, as you see. But for the actual mappable fields, you'll see two columns here. You'll see your Salesforce fields in the first column, and then your desk fields on the second column. So if you have set up a lot of custom fields in Salesforce, those will appear here. And then what you can simply do is select the desk field that you want to actually map it to. Now, you'll probably have to set up some custom fields in Desk to match your custom fields in Salesforce. And that's very easy to do. I will walk you through on creating those custom fields. Actually, for my next example, actually, let's go there right now. So I'm already in the admin already, but now I'll go to cases here. All right. And then once I'm in cases, once again, I will actually click on cases. Okay. And then the first option that's selected is custom field, which I'm already on. So here we can go ahead and create, those custom fields to match the Salesforce custom fields. Okay. And it's very easy to do. We can just add fields here and do so. Now, the last thing that I did want to review is something that we call selective sync for cases. So one common use case is that a lot of companies, they say, hey, I don't want all of my cases to sync over to Salesforce. I only want the ones that I actually choose to sync from Desk to Salesforce to actually sync. So if that's the case, we can actually achieve this through creating a custom field, which we're on that screen right now, and we can actually set up a condition for Desk Connect to sync over. So the first step will be to actually create a custom field, and I've done that already here. Again, once you're already in the custom field, you can add field, but let's actually take a look at the one that I've already set up here, and it's called Sync to Salesforce. I'll go ahead and just edit here. So I've already designated the name to be synced to Salesforce, and then the key auto-populates to sync _to _Salesforce. You can change that key upon creating this custom field. But for this, I'd recommend creating a list view here. So I've added the options of no and yes. And for my default value, I've selected the top data value, which is no, to be the default value. So I'll go ahead and just save this once again here. Once I've done that, now we've created our custom field, and then we'll actually go over to settings and Desk Connect. And again, the use case here is that, if a customer says, I want only the cases that I choose to sync to actually sync over to Salesforce. So I'll go over to cases here, and then we go to desk to Salesforce. And then, so we can actually set up the condition where I can say when our custom field that we've created, sync to Salesforce, when that custom field value is yes, only then will it actually sync over. And so we can actually set that up in here. Let me just give it a quick save, and we'll take a look at what that looks like here. Okay, so I'll hop over to the actual agent here, and then I'll open up one of these cases. Okay, and then I'll scroll down just here a little bit. On the right-hand side, we'll see our case details. And now we see our custom field that we've created sync to Salesforce. And then we see that the list view list options are no and yes. And again, it does default to no. So only in the case where I select yes and update will this case actually sync over to Salesforce. All right. And that is all the information that I wanted to share. What I'll actually do is I'll open up the floor for some questions.